नमः पार्वती पतये गोविंद नाम संकीर्तनम्।
नमस्कारं सदाशिव समारंभां शंकराचार्य मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरु परंपराम्. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity. So we have today come up with a small presentation for all of you. This is a story on Gajendra Moksham and on Prahalad Charitram. And as usual, I have to thank and definitely to our Kanchi Peryavas for being the guiding lights. So here it goes. Okay, all right. So this lecture is actually something called as the witnesses to Sriman Narayana's Daya. Now, if you were to, one of the opening verses of Ramayana somewhat goes like this. It says that Konvasmin Sampratam Loke Gunavan Kastya Viryavan. So Narada is asked, so Valmiki Bhagavan is asking Narada, tell me who is the person in the current universe and in current times who has these 16 qualities. One amongst those qualities is Daya. Closely translated is mercy. Okay, so Sriman Narayana's one of his qualities is mercy. And the story here is that there are 6 prominent witnesses there. There must be several thousands, but we talk about 6 prominent witnesses to his Daya, who have been recipients of his Daya. So who are those people? Okay, first is definitely Ahalya. Okay, so Sri Rama, he blessed her and she turned from a stone back into her human form. Second is Dhruva, a very small child with his immense amount of prayers brings even Sriman Narayana from Vaikuntham down to earth. Okay. Third is Vibhishana. Vibhishana's Kankaryam or service to Sri Rama is unheard of. He does so much of work for him. So for which he is one of the recipients of his Daya. Fourth is, of course, Draupadi. Draupadi, amongst all these people, Draupadi has the longest association with the Sri Krishna. Okay, so she has been through so much of troubles and Krishna was there through each of her troubles and he has protected her whenever she has asked him for help. Okay, then Gajendra, who is then stopped with only people. It goes to animals also, and this is the best example. Okay, and then you have Prahalada, another little child like Dhruva, who also has a lot of tribulations and trials, and finally, when he is not able to bear it up, Mahavishnu takes the avatar of Narasimha and comes and saves him. So we are going to first see about Gajendra and Prahalada in this lecture. Okay, so let's start off first of all with where this Gajendra Moksha is actually mentioned. So that happens in the Bhagavata Puranam. The Bhagavata Puranam is a conversation between 2 very famous personalities, Shuka Brahmar and Parikshit. Actually, if you see, our Sanatana Dharma is replete with such kind of instances. Okay, it's not like someone says and someone blindly follows. No, it's not like that. There is a great amount of conversation, great amount of thought which goes on between 2 or more people, which then comes out as a beautiful philosophy. Okay, so here we are talking about 2 people, who is Shuka and Parikshit. Now, who is Shuka? Shuka, as you know, if you look back at Vishnu, at one of the verses in the Vishnu Sahasranama, it comes up as Vyasam Vashishta Naptaram Shakte Pautram Akalmasham Parasharatmajam Vande Shukatatam Taponidim. So who is this? Vyasa, who is the son of Parasha, who is the son of Shuka, who is the son of Vashishta. Okay, and who is the father of Shuka? So look at this family, very famous family. So so Shuka is the son of Maharishi Vyasa. So he has a conversation with Parikshit. Now, who is Parikshit? Parikshit is the son of Abhimanyu, who is the son of Arjuna, who is the son of Pandu, who in turn is the son of Vichitra Virya or Vyasa. That's another story of its own. We'll come to that at some other point of time. All right. So these two famous personalities are talking with each other, in which Shuka is describing Krishna's childhood and his previous avatars. So there, Parikshit, in this context, Parikshit asks him, "Can you give me an example of the highest form of japa? Who has done and what japa was this?" So Shuka is, he is very eager to answer this question. So he says, "Okay, fine. Here you go. Take this story." So he starts off by saying, "Okay, so there is this." Here in the picture you can see Shuka and Parikshit. So he says that, okay, so there is this, he starts off by telling a story of a large male elephant. He describes in great detail as to the place where it is in India. Looking by the geography of it, looks like it has happened somewhere in Maharashtra. Okay. So he describes the big mountain, the caves under the mountain, the vegetation which was going there, the lakes which were there, the rivers which fed the lakes. Okay. And he describes how many male elephants were there in this herd, how many female elephants, how many calves. So all these things he tells it in great detail. The story opens like this. Just hold on. Okay. So then, this elephant which was traveling like this, it comes across a watering hole. Okay. So, and it leads all its herd into the watering hole. And as usual, what do elephants do before they even drink water? They bathe in it. They dirty the whole place. Now this lake was a home to a large crocodile. And this crocodile gets really angry, and immediately it tries to grab hold of this male elephant, whose name is Gajendra, an Indra among the Gajas, a king of elephants, and tries to drag him into the lake. Okay, and this elephant tries. It's really best to fight off this threat. And the other elephants, when they find that its leader is caught, they also try to pull this elephant out, but nothing is happening. Okay, so this crocodile is apparently so very powerful that it is literally able to drag this elephant slowly back into the water. At which point of time, in great desperation, suddenly he remembers his previous life. Now the flashback starts. So there was a king by the name of Indradyumna who was in the Pandya Desam. Pandya Desam is where? Tamil Nadu, Madurai side. Okay. So he is a king, Indradyumna, who was a great devotee of Mahavishnu. Now, unfortunately for him, what happens is without knowing, he angers Maharishi Agastya. So Agastya gets angry and turns him into an elephant. Okay, and Mahavishnu knows that this is going to happen, and so he creates a situation wherein he can come and rescue him, and that is this whole story. So as soon as this elephant, remembers his previous birth and remembers that he was a devotee of Shriman Narayana, he gives out a stotram or japa invoking Mahavishnu. He he literally calls out to him Adi Mulame. This is it says in his own way. It's not like like how we are speaking, and this voice, this great bhakti reaches the ears of Shriman Narayana, who is in Vaikuntham. And when he realizes that his devotee is in such big trouble, he drops everything. He even forgets to take his chakram. He jumps actually. Then he realizes that he has left everything behind. This is very important because this comes up in a later poem. Then he realizes that, he has left so many things behind. So he runs back immediately. He picks up his Kaumodaki, his Gada, his Chakram, Sudarshan Chakram, and then, he gets onto Garuda, and literally he has to force Garuda, to fly faster. Garuda himself is really fast, but he has to literally prod him and make him to go even faster because his devotee is in big trouble. So then he finds the, so over here. Yes. So he finds this, his devotee struggling in the grasp of this crocodile, lets loose his Sudarshan Chakram, and very carefully cuts off he kills the crocodile and then saves Gajendra. The story is, there's a philosophical story behind this. Okay, so if you see here, the moksham was first given to the crocodile. Okay, the crocodile who's the aggressor gets the moksham even before the devotee. What does this signify? Service to man is more important than service to Paramatma himself. The crocodile had figuratively caught hold of the Bhakta's legs. He didn't catch hold of Paramatma's legs. He caught hold of the Bhakta's legs. So, Paramatma is obligated to give that person moksham ahead of even his Bhakta. Now the crocodile itself has a back story. The crocodile was actually a Gandharva, like one of the celestial beings who dances and sings songs. So that, he angered Indra or one of the rishis, and they transformed him into a crocodile. So Mahavishnu was able to factor in all these people and somehow, deliver moksham to both his devotees finally. So that's the beautiful story over here. Next we have Prahalada Charitram. Okay, so here, whatever it is, we have to go back to our Ramayanam and Mahabharatam. They are our Moola Vigrahams. Okay, so we have to go there, and then you have to, for any reference, you have to go to Mahabharatam and Ramayanam before we come to any of our stories. So here, Rama, when he is having this, when he's about to start this battle with Ravana, suddenly, he is not used to getting angry. But in one of those times when he gets angry, he says, I do not need any of my weapons. I do not need my Kodandam. I can finish off Ravana with my bare fingers, with my bare hands. Okay. So this is very unlikely for a Kshatriya to act, and that to a person of Rama's stature who knows so much of Kshatriya Dharma, for him to leave off his weapons and use his hands. It's kind of, it's actually kind of what this is. It's a little shameful for Kshatriya to resort to using his fingers. Why did Rama talk like this? Let's hold on for that. Next reference comes in Mahabharatam. Rukmani Devi wants to get married to Krishna. Okay, so she sends him out a letter, and then she says, in that letter, she says, just like how you help your Prahalada by emerging out of a pillar, why can't you emerge out of this letter and save me? Okay, so now the philosophical thing here is that both Rama and Krishna, they remember Rama is Raghava Simha and Krishna is Yadava Simha, the lion amongst the Yadavas. Okay, so both of them, they have remembered their previous avatar, that was Narasimha. Okay, Narasimha's impact, if you see, is supposed to if you is so large. He is supposed to have been one of the shortest avatars. Okay, probably extending for a few hours. Himself and Varaha Peruman, they have they have been on our Bhulokam for possibly a few hours, but their impact is so huge. Okay, that Rama remembers him and Krishna remembers him, right? At certain points of time. Okay. So this picture is a very famous, Vigraham, which is there at Hampi. Okay. There are many more things, but then you can look at the beauty with which our some of our ancients have managed to carve out such a beautiful Vigraham. Okay. All right. So you might all know the story of Narasimha, but let me go through it in brief. Okay. So Prahalada, who was the son of Hiranyakashipu and Kayatu. Hiranyakashipu's wife was Kayatu. Hiranyakashipu and his brother Hiranyaksha were the sons of Diti and Maharishi Kashyapa. Okay. And they had such great hatred towards Mahavishnu. Okay. So Hiranyaksha is killed by Varaha Peruman. So Hiranyakashipu gets very angry. So he prays to Brahmadeva and requests him to grant him immortality. Okay. Absolutely nothing should be able to kill him. But Brahmadeva says, this is not in my power because I myself do not have this. How can I grant you this thing? Okay. So Hiranyakashipu comes up, he thinks that he can trick Brahmadeva. So he comes up with so many conditions. Some of them are like, he cannot be killed by any man, animal, or deva. He cannot be killed inside his house or outside his house. He cannot be killed during daytime or nighttime. He cannot be killed by any weapon. And finally, he puts up a condition: anything of your creation, of Brahmadeva's creation, should not have the capacity to kill me. Now, this greatly, Brahmadeva is greatly happy by the last condition, because there's one person who is there who has created even Brahmadeva himself, and that person will be able to kill Hiranyakashipu. So he says, okay, tatastu, take it and go. All right. So as usual, once he gets so much of powers, like all these power hungry people, once they get the power, they act, they go crazy. But then something else is happening. So while he is praying over here, Indra comes to know that Kayatu is pregnant and he wants to kill her. He wants to finish her off. But at which point of time, Narada intervenes. Narada intervenes at all the correct times. And he says, nothing doing. You don't have the power to kill this lady, because she is bearing one of Sriman Narayana's greatest devotees. So Narada takes care of Kayatu, and at a very young, even for the little child, Kayatu's, she spends a lot of time listening to Narada's discourses, Narada's Upanyasams, like something like I am giving, but Narada, of course, he is much more qualified than many of us. He is Brahmadeva's son. So unfortunately, he gets only one person listening to him, and that is Kayatu. So Narada, he tells about the glories of Sriman Narayana, and this baby growing inside Kayatu listens to Narada's lectures, and from that time itself, bhakti is actually born inside the baby, right? Okay. So then what happens? Finally, once the child is born, Narada takes the child and the mother and returns them back to Hiranyakashipu. Okay, and Hiranyakashipu is so happy that he has got his child. He's happy that his family is back on one side, and he's also happy that he's doing all his conquests, and he's trying to capture so much of Deva's lands and kingdoms. Anyhow, so when Prahalada is around 5 years old or so, he's sent to Shukracharya's sons for his education, and they teach him all kinds of things actually. But Prahalada's bhakti towards Sriman Narayana is so great that he manages to convert most of those people, okay, to becoming Sri Hari's devotees. So this news once again reaches this guy Hiranyakashipu, and he is greatly angry. Okay, that someone is someone is not even, forget him learning what has been taught to him, he's managed to convert the other people to become his greatest enemy's devotees. Okay. All right. So what does he do? Naturally, first he tries to persuade him by sweet talk. So that's not happening. So then he realizes that his own son is a big threat to him. So he commits all kinds of tortures on this little child. He throws him into fire. He has elephants try to stamp him. He has snakes try to bite him. All kinds of things. But then somehow or the other, there is some kind of miraculous intervention which tries to, which prevents any harm from happening to this child. Okay. Then finally, what happens is this guy Hiranyakashipu totally he loses it. He says that, okay, you tell me where Sri Hari is. I'm calling him out. Is he there inside this pillar? Okay, so he brings him to his home and then says, is he there inside this pillar? So Prahalada says, Hari is everywhere. Okay, he is there, even within the smallest atom, he is there, and he is there within the whole, he's there controlling the whole universe all at the same time. Smallest among the small, largest amongst the large, pervading everywhere. Okay, so then he says, okay, then, if you say that he is everywhere, he must be inside the so-called, inside this very large pillar. So he brings out his huge mace, Gada. He tries to break the pillar. And then from inside, a huge form emerges. And this looks like, to the surprise of this guy, it looks like a person with a lion's head and a human body. Okay. And now, when he looks at him, he says that, this is actually this form of Sriman Narayana, which is called as Narasimha. He drags Hiranyakashipu to the entrance of the home, and then uses his fingernails and tears him apart. So if you see here, Mahavishnu, he finds a way to bypass all the rules as set by Brahma Deva. This is not the time of death is the twilight time. It's neither morning nor day. So one of the conditions has been bypassed. He is he's placed on his lap, so he's not in he's not on Swargalokam or Bhumi Lokam, but he's on Narasimha's lap. He uses his fingers, which technically cannot be considered as any weapon. Okay. And all the rules as set by Brahma or as set by Hiranyakashipu, this guy, by Hiranyakashipu to Brahmadeva, Narasimha manages to bypass all those rules and still, kill Hiranyakashipu. There it is. Okay. Now, after he's done with this, Narasimha is still very angry. So someone needs to calm him down. At this point of time, even Brahmadeva is like, he's a little scared to approach Narasimha. So he sends Prahalada. So Prahalada comes forth, and then he sings a stuti in which he is calmed down. Narasimha is calmed down. And then he says, okay, he says, I will grant you whatever you want. So Prahalada, in great humility, he says, whatever it is, the person whom you have killed is my father. So please do, don't show your anger anymore. Forgive him immediately, please. Okay. Narasimha says, okay, I thought you'd be asking something for yourself, but instead of that, you asked something for your dad. So no problem. I forgive him immediately. Now you ask me something for yourself. Second time, Prahalada says, I do not want anything. Next time, when you come here in front of me, I should have the humility not to ask you anything. Please grant me that humility. Look at this. Someone, there have been people who like Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, who have been going and praying to Brahmadeva, asking him to give me something. Here you have Mahavishnu himself appearing in front of Prahalada, who says, whatever you want, take it. And this boy has so much of maturity even for that small age. He says, I do not want anything. Okay, you give me, if you can give me the humility, so that next time you come here, I should not ask you for anything. So then now there's nothing else what you can do. So Mahavishnu says, okay, I will take one varam from you. Okay. Narasimha says, I will take one boon from you. You have to give me a boon. So he says, I will take your name, Prahalada Varadan. Okay, so he takes his name. The Bhagavan takes the Bhakta's name. Okay, now the story goes a little bit further. Lakshmi Devi is still kind of angry with him. Okay, because she treats both Prahalada and Hiranyakashipu as her children. Okay, so why did Mahavishnu shows some kind of partiality towards one Bhakta and not towards the other? So she says that you must have somehow given him a little bit more chances. Okay, you must have allowed him to repent. You did not allow him, you did not give him enough chances to repent. So Mahavishnu says, don't worry, this Janmam he's already gone, but the next Janmam which he takes, which will be in the form of Ravana, I will give him at least few chances. That's why you have the famous Shlokam which says Indrupoi Nalaiva. When he tries to, when he has lost all his weapons against the fight with Rama, Rama says, it's okay, the sun has already set, go now and come back later. And Rama actually gives Ravana quite a few number of chances, which he doesn't obviously take it up. And in the next avatar, in which he's born as Shishupala, Krishna gives him at least 100 chances, perhaps even more. But we know that he has given him 100 distinct chances. So after seeing all this only, Lakshmi Devi says, oh, okay, fine, okay, so you have lived up to your reputation. And then she gets back into his heart. Okay, I mean, figuratively speaking. Now here, the story of Narasimha is told by Kambar. Kambar, when he writes his Tamil version of Ramayana called Rama Avataram, he tells this in a beautiful way, in which he is presented he has written his magnum opus, the Rama Avataram, from whatever he has heard from one of his acharyas in Sanskritam, and he has translated beautifully into Tamil. of course adding a bit of our own local flavor. Now he has to present this. Okay, so some of the acharyas in Srirangam, they say that they are kind of skeptical about this translation. At which point of time they hear a loud garjane, a roar, okay, coming from the Narasimha Sannidhi. This is there in Srirangam. You enter Srirangam, you will be able to see all these things. Okay, so then they immediately come to know that okay, Narasimha himself has given his approval, and so we'll accept this also as a very prominent work, and you can see inside Srirangam itself that there is a place where Kambar himself presented his Upanyasam of the whole Ramayana. Okay. So that's the slide presentation which I have, and I have to say that I have taken a bit of this presentation from Dushyant Sridhar's lectures and from Swami Velukudi Krishnan. So I'm most indebted to both of them, as I am towards our Periyavas also, for being the guiding lights.